Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about what happens during the appraisal process. We're going to talk about, what an appraisal is, how do they come up with the value, all of that good stuff. But before we get into that, I'm Jeb Smith, Coldwell Banker Residential Brokerage. And if you haven't already, do me a favor, like the video if you find value in it, clearly after you watch it, and subscribe to my channel for more education on real estate, and real estate related topics. But as we talk about today's video, appraisals, what happens during appraisal? Let's actually talk about the process, right? What is an appraisal? Who does an appraisal? How do they come up with the value? All that good stuff. So basically what an appraisal is it's a valuation of what a particular property is worth. Generally, appraisals are done by banks when somebody is buying a property to determine the actual value of the home, because clearly the lender, whoever's lending the money for the person to buy the property, doesn't want to lend more money than the home is actually worth. So the bank wants to, have the security that the value that they're actually lending on the property is there. And so that's why most people do appraisals. Clearly there's other reasons why when an appraisal can be completed. But for the most part, we're talking about loans here, and that's why they're done. So, and keep in mind that with appraisals, they're completed by licensed appraisers. Now, keep in mind, just because somebody's licensed doesn't make them a good appraiser. Typically you want an appraiser who's familiar with the area that they're appraising. You don't want to send somebody from Huntington Beach out to Barstow to appraise property out there, because it's completely different. It's a rural area versus appraising property, say, where we are, which is a little more suburban, right? And you got a lot more houses close together, smaller yards, etc. So while all appraisers are licensed, or should be, they're not all the same, right? So make sure if whoever's doing the appraisal is familiar with the area, familiar with the community if possible, to get the best valuation of what a property is worth. Now, let's talk about what actually happens. How does an appraiser come up with the value of a home? So prior to an appraiser ever going out to a property, typically speaking, they're going to look at comparable properties, right? They already know what address of the property they're going out to, right? In most cases, appraisers they know the bedroom, they know the bathrooms, they know the lot size, they know the square footage of the property. If the property is listed online, they've looked through the pictures, they have an idea of what's been done in the property with regards to upgrades, etc. And in purchase cases, when somebody's buying a house, they actually have a copy of the purchase contract, so they know the value that somebody is paying for the house. So they know where they need to bring that value in order for the property to appraise. Now, on refinances, they don't know the value of the property, so that's kind of the difference in the two, or at least they shouldn't know the value of the property, so that they can do an unbiased opinion, if you will, of what the property is worth. But, once they have that data on the property, the bedroom, bathroom, square footage, all that good stuff, what they do is they look at comparable homes prior to ever going out to the property, right? Because they want to get an idea of value. So ideally, an appraiser is finding properties that have the same number of bedrooms, same number of bathrooms, similar square footage on similar lots. If they can find a model match, that's even better, right? Because model matches are a lot easier to, smaller differentiations, I guess, if you will, between the properties, and a lot easier to make adjustments, right? When an appraiser, keep in mind, so they're not always going to be able to find properties that are identical. In most cases, they're not going to be able to find properties that are identical. And in those cases, what happens is they have to make adjustments on the appraisal, right? So if there's more bedrooms in one property versus the next, they have to make an adjustment on that. If one property is nicer than the other, they have to make adjustments, right? So what they do is they take these other comparable properties, and now when I talk about comparable properties, ideally they should have 3 properties that have sold and 3 active listings. Properties that are actively listed on the market. So there'll be 6 total properties used to come up with an appraised value of a home. And on each one of those properties, regardless of whether it's a model match or not, there's likely some adjustments in the property. You make adjustments for basically everything from square footage to lot size to bedrooms to bathrooms to condition to age of a property, etc. And so all those adjustments are made. And then when an appraiser goes out, so they have an idea of this information prior to going out to to appraise the actual property they're going to look at. And when they go out to the property rather, what they're doing is they're looking at the condition of the property. They're measuring a square footage on the inside. So some people use the laser to get the square footage. Some people are using actual tape measures to get the square footage, but they're measuring and drawing a diagram, if you will, of the property, and putting the measurements on that diagram, because that's also included in the appraisal. And while the county records have the square footage on record, that doesn't necessarily always meet with the square footage of a home. So the appraiser's out there double checking the square footage of the property, because in some cases additions have been done, and while they might be permitted, sometimes the city doesn't update their records, sometimes they're not permitted. So that's a whole different story, but they're going out there and taking photos of each area of the property, including the exterior, the backyard, sides, etc., as well as each room, and they're measuring. And then once they've done that, they're going out to ideally take pictures of the other properties that are in the appraisal. So they're driving by those other properties that they're using for the appraisal to check location, to check what the exterior looks like, etc. In most cases, they're not going inside those properties. They can see past photos online. If they're actively listed on the MLS, they can use those photos as well. Excuse me. But they're using that data compared to what they saw at the property, and then what they're doing is they're formulating an opinion of value, right? An appraisal is nothing more than someone's opinion of the value of the home. In most cases, on a purchase, the appraiser will just bring the value of the property in at the price that the purchase price, right? They're not out there to appraise it for the maximum amount. They're just trying to get to the number that the bank needs in order to satisfy the loan. And now I'm not saying they're doing that just to come up with that value, but they're not shooting to try to appraise it for maximum value in most cases, right? They're just out there to make sure that it appraises for what the bank needs. On refinances, it's a little bit different. They should actually appraise it for the maximum amount it's worth, so you get a better idea of the value. But keep in mind, you'll have 5 appraisers go to a property. You might have 5 different, ideas of value, right? And there's different approaches to come up with the value of a home, but most use the sales comparison method, where they're using the comps that I mentioned to come up with the value of the home. And so, while, I mentioned an appraisal is someone's opinion of the value, that's exactly what it is, right? And so you have 5 people come out, you might have 5 different opinions of that value. So, you got to take appraised value somewhat lightly. They should all be pretty close, but not all are going to be exactly to the dollar amount. So, I hope that's helpful in explaining appraisals. I'm sure there's stuff I missed. It's a lot to talk about this without having direct questions. But if you do have questions, comment below. I'm happy to address them. You can contact me directly as well, and I'm happy to reach out that way too. But either way, I do appreciate you taking the time to watch these videos. If there's a topic you want me to touch base on, message me and let me know. I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, I appreciate you taking the time to watch, and we'll see you again soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.